Oh, celebrity crushes. Most of us have them. The allure of a handsome or gorgeous face on the screen captivating our hearts in an instant. Or perhaps it's the transformative power of a certain role they played that made us see them in a whole new light. Celebrities are everywhere. Their familiar faces gracing our screens, enchanting us with their talent year after year. But have you ever stopped and really thought about what it would be like to date one of your celebrity crushes? I mean, really think about it. What would it truly be like to be a celebrity's plus one? Beyond the glitz and glamour, there's a world of considerations to be made. For example, could you emotionally handle it? Would you be prepared for their passionate fan base to have opinions about your relationship? And trust me when I say those opinions can be absolutely brutal. Would you be required to sign an NDA agreement? These are just a few of the thoughts that have crossed my own mind when I think about the intricacies of dating someone famous. It's about delving into the complexities of establishing a cohesive, loving, respectful, and loyal relationship with somebody deeply embedded in the Hollywood spotlight. Finding a sense of normalcy amidst the extraordinary. We witness the world of celebrity dating unfold before our eyes every day. Famous people dating other famous people. We see it on social media, in the headlines, and in the tabloids. But what about when a famous, well-known figure finds love with a so-called, quote-unquote, normal Jane or Joe? How did they meet? What was their experience like, both from the celebrity's perspective and from the everyday person's point of view? Hi, I'm DeAnna Cali, just a regular Jane and host of Celebrity+One. In this thought-provoking podcast, I embark on a journey to interview those non-industry folk who have dated famous people, diving deep into their personal experiences. What was it like? What did they learn along the way? And most importantly, would they do it all over again? But it doesn't stop there. I also hope to gain interviews with celebrities who have formed relationships with non-industry individuals, hoping to chat with celebs like Matthew McConaughey and his wife, Raven-Symoné and her wife, Wanda Sykes, and Drew Barrymore, just to name a few. Delving into the intriguing world of fame, I'll pose thought-provoking questions to publicists, managers, agents, college professors, historians, and more. We'll explore the inner workings of it all, from the necessity of signing NDAs to the meticulous approval process for social media posts. And of course, we'll dive into the burning question, why don't celebrities date more non-celebrities? Believe me, there's no question that will be left unasked. We will, however, be sensitive to those who want to share their stories and keep the information within legal means and protecting privacy. I definitely don't need anyone's lawyer coming in after me. Whether you're a starry-eyed fan or simply curious about the intricacies of celebrity relationships, this podcast promises to deliver eye-opening insights you won't want to miss. So, join us as we pull back the curtain and embark on a mesmerizing exploration of the realities of dating celebrities. Together, we'll navigate the glamorous red carpet moments and unlock the secrets that lie behind closed doors. Get ready, because the first episode of Celebrity+One is just seconds away. So how did we get here as a society with celebrity culture and the never-ending fascination with their love lives and, well, their lives in general? Let's go way back into the past, to the creation of the movie star. I reached out to professor and media historian Moya Luckett, who teaches at NYU, the Gallatin School of Individual Study. She takes me through each decade in Hollywood and how we developed the makings of the movie star and fame itself.
How do you think the public's interest or obsession began with celebrity pop culture, and when do you think that started?
think it starts earlier than we think. I think it really gains momentum in the late 19th century. But I think the theatre historians who probably could trace it back even further, but I think late 19th century, you've got several things happening that really push it forward. One of them is cheap postcards of Broadway stars that people could collect, photographic postcards. The shift from what they used to call stock companies, where you'd have a group of people who are acting and traveling around the country, to the idea of the actor manager and the theatre star in the late 19th century, plus the rise of showgirls, models, like people like Edith Nesbit, who were famous because they were primarily beautiful girls who came from places like Pittsburgh, didn't have much money, but used their looks and got onto the stage. And you've got people like Florence Ziegfeld, whose follies are just basically, if you're pretty, and you can just be in there and just walk across the stage wearing very little. And it's not just men who like to look at these women, it's women, young women, who see them as role models, interested in the fashion they develop. And with the cheapness of photography by that point, there's paper ephemera, there's advertising. So I think it all sort of gets going then, and it takes a while to move into cinema, but by the 1910s, that's when it really explodes with mid-1910s with cinema, particularly with young female stars.
Now, I had to look up what exactly paper ephemera was, and it's basically just a booklet of memorabilia. Think show tickets, ticket stubs, playing cards, postcards, and more. Ephemera is almost always paper-based and is often written or printed items that were expected to have short-term popularity or usefulness. That totally reminded me of the days when Tiger Beat magazines were out and we collected photos of our favorite 90s heartthrobs and posted them on our bedroom walls and made collages that we put in our school binders. Anyway, I then asked Professor Luckett, when did things really transition as far as theater actor to the cinema actor, and getting into more of the celebrity status as we know it today? And she breaks it down here.
You can't necessarily see that actor every week, every day, should you want to. And then with cinema, things become just much more available, particularly after about 1907, when, for a variety of reasons, changes in the medium really developed this emphasis on the character and the actor and and the fantasy of what the person behind that actor might be like in their real life. I think in the 1910s, you get a lot of things happening really quickly, because I do think whenever you've got a new medium, at first it's going to be about what it can do, what its technology is, finding out what it does. And then after you've sort of got that established, then it seems that celebrity kind of follows. And I think you see this with digital too. It's like at the beginning, it's more about email and web chatting and forums and information, and then it sort of moves into this celebrity ecosystem and becomes arguably its biggest driver. But I think in the 1910s, you get this sort of idea of the ordinary person can become a star, and particularly the young girl, and there's real emphasis on youth, sort of teenage girls. Teenage girls are really into it as audiences, but they're also the driver when it comes to stardom. And I think that sort of idea of becoming famous, kind of like reality TV. It's like, this is something that you could do. It's available, and then realizing that it isn't available any longer. Those just like today with the influencers, the early adopters got there, and that's it. But I think we also get from that the idea that fame is very feminized. Celebrity is very feminized. It's very youthful. It's very tied to beauty, and it's often really short-lived.
Studios already at this point during the 1920s created a system where all of their actors and day players were contracted, meaning they both belonged to a specific studio and could be used for all of the productions that the studio was making. So basically they recycled their performers, and those performers would get paid a certain amount. However, those contracted players could not go to another studio and get work. For example, if you were contracted with MGM, you could only do projects for MGM and not sneak over to the Warner Brothers lot and try to get work there. I mean, as an actor myself, any kind of contracted work can be a blessing. I mean, it's somewhat a guaranteed work and pay, but it also can limit your options.
In the 20s, I think you see more of a sense of trying to institutionalize it with the growth of industry PR, and also the rise of vertical integration in the studio system, and developments of things like the 7-year contract. And then the 30s, the tenor's different because of, I think the main things are obviously sound films. So you'd get a very different, perhaps more grounded relationship to the actor, more of an emphasis on acting rather than being, and also the I think very important role of glamour during the Depression as a form of escapism. So things get things get a bit more sophisticated, consciously sophisticated, but sophistication for the average person. A lot of fantasy around celebrity, and probably from the audience's perspective, great curiosity, but also a greater recognition that a lot of what they're seeing has been produced for them by the studios, publicity agents, etc. I think there's also just this sort of idea of cinema and movie stars as American royalty.
American royalty. There we go. At this point in time, who do you think was the epitome of American royalty in the eyes of cinema goers? Well, no other than Charlie Chaplin. Although be it he is a British native, Charlie Chaplin was the actor, the celebrity that most historians say really kicked it off. Charlie was the most famous man in the world at this point. I mean, people would gather wherever he was in the public space. His films reached across oceans and became a universal icon. Even to this day in 2024, younger generations, without having even seen an actual Charlie Chaplin silent film, can point him out and know exactly who he is.
And to me, the 60s, obviously, the big change is youth. Cinema loses its dominance, particularly with youth, some of that in the 50s, but I think the real motor in the 60s of the rise of more countercultural pop music, rock music figures. And with that, the 50s does have this sort of glamour iconography of the film star, but by the time you get to the 60s, a lot of that has just been traded into youth culture, and cinema looks a bit dusty. In American cinemas, does try to catch up. Obviously, you've got the sort of more youthful cinemas from France and the UK that I think, obviously, Hollywood, being the giant it is, sort of takes those and incorporates them in. But I think that's when you really start to see the late 50s, early 60s through to the end of the 60s, that we're now thinking about a more multimedia idea of celebrity, and the power that used to be given to the studios and the fan magazines has now really become much more challenged by fans. And with that, I think there's just much more a youthful quality.
During the 1960s, it was a time of social change in the industry, as well as movies during this time focused on fun, fashion, rock and roll, societal shifts like the civil rights movements, and transitions into cultural values. One of the most famous groups of all time came from this cultural shift, and they were a little band called the Beatles. The musician rock star became another type of celebrity during this time, and yes, I know Elvis and many more were before this as well. But this was also a time of change in the world's perception of America and its culture, largely influenced by the Vietnam War and continuous shifts into governmental power. With those big shifts happening in film and music, one thing was always constant: the celebrity. The celebrity had the platform, whether that was a musician or actor, to say what they really thought about certain issues. The public was really into which celebrity had something to say about which issues. And quite frankly, that's still something that a celebrity does today. Whether they mention certain topics in an acceptance speech or uses social media to voice their own opinions, it's still really prevalent.
And then I think that really the 90s, the big shake-up obviously is the internet, but it's not. I think that comes more as a way of, it's not about, you can't make yourself famous on it, and you can't really use it to form communities around stars, but it speaks to the possibility of unlicensed representation of stars. And I think you mentioned about the paparazzi, and that starts earlier, but I think that's when the paparazzi really can get going, because that's when the studios just can't control everything. They can't control what a camera is going to be able to do to a celebrity, whether it's Princess Diana or Lindsay Lohan or Paris Hilton, perhaps a little bit later. And it also can't control the way that stars can start saying, I'm going to take this into my own hand and I'm going to let the paparazzi have some of my images, particularly if they want to break out of the packaging that music or television or film or even modeling has put them in. So I think there's sort of I think the 90s is interesting. There's a lot of things going on. There's not really one strand, but you see television producing more celebrities in that decade.
The 90s. I may be aging myself here, but that was my childhood decade. I remember a lot about the famous actors that I loved were getting hounded by the paparazzi. And those tabloid magazines at the grocery store lines where you'd buy gum, they would be plastered everywhere on the front covers. The good, the bad, and the ugly. At that time, I remember it was Princess Diana. She was on everything and everywhere. But who started the paparazzi, and what does that word even actually mean? The dictionary definition of paparazzi is, quote, a freelance photographer who pursues celebrities to get photographs of them. Well, there you have it. It's an Italian word, and paparazzo is actually the singular term. This was before the internet. Tabloids and magazines were all we had to get the latest scoop or rumor on our favorite celebs. As a society, we were obsessed with the addiction to reading about celebrities, their lifestyles, the money, the gossip, the fashion. We wanted to know it all. The paparazzi, as much as I hate to give them credit, they were actually our lifeline to be able to peek inside the world of famous people. Now, remember, the internet wasn't a thing until 1999, and even in 1999, we still had no idea what the hell we were doing with the internet yet. Even in the early 2000s, when Lindsay Lohan and Paris Hilton were being stalked, we were just starting to hear about those celeb gossip sites like Perez Hilton and TMZ. Obviously, Perez Hilton made his mark during this time. I mean, do you guys remember some of the stuff he used to do on his site? I remember how he used to draw on the paparazzi pictures and make like googly eyes and draw fake cigarettes, and he would write something out of the celeb mouths and scribble something crazy. It was definitely a embarking time on tabloid media on the internet. Despite what you may think about Perez and TMZ now, we were hooked.
By the end of the decade, the rise of the celebrity fashion designer with people like Tom Ford, the re-evocation of glamour, and crucially a much more diverse, racially and culturally diverse range of candidates for stardom, but with also that sense that the system is really confronting something with digital that it's not going to be able to control. And then I think we all know what happens next. It's as you said, you don't wait for someone to make the opportunity, you can make it yourself. And I think this is where, we see all our ideas about lines between celebrities and stars being shattered, the notion of communication from the audience, maybe the death of the paparazzi as well, because why do we need to buy a photo of somebody when we've all got cameras and when the stars are purposefully giving it away for nothing? Mm-hmm. And the rise of the Kardashians and Paris Hilton, I think, are really crucial there. But I also think what we see now is that you can't necessarily use social media in the way you used to, or even blogging or the digital space or reality TV to make yourself famous, because there's now too many candidates and too many people who know how to manipulate algorithms, and we can't all be visible all at the same time. So I think they call it the whole stuff about Nepo babies recently. This is something I've been writing about before that, but it's like the end of blogs really was people like Leander Madreen with the Man Repeller, and they're going into it not as a Tabby Gevinson who's just doing it to express her love of fashion. They're going into it thinking, how can I form a brand? How can I get my marketing team up? And I have to have all of that ready so I can break in. Or the late stage of blogs would be people like Gwyneth Paltrow and Blake Lively and Hollywood stars, rich people saying, I'm going to set up a digital ecosystem, get the marketing people out, and I'm going to do my own blog. And it no longer becomes this way that the talented girl in her bedroom can make it out. It becomes much more top down. And of course, I don't think we're at the end of this system. I think it is, this idea of bottom up, top down, make it yourself, have it made for you. I think these are tensions that play out differently at different moments. Right now, I think we're in an interesting moment where, I don't know, I think we're sort of at the end of a certain kind of social media celebrity. And I think it's also very difficult today with the way that the industries are no longer as discrete. So it goes back to an idea that I had when I was talking about the 1910s, where one of the defining things about celebrity then was you didn't just do one thing, you did lots of different things. You weren't an actor, you weren't a writer, you weren't a model. You did bits of everything with an idea of forming your own brand. And that's where we are right now. But I don't know where it's going to go.
The point where we are right now as social media access to celebrities has skyrocketed. It's such a crazy thought. There was a time where celebs and famous people wanted to be so private with everything, and of course that's their prerogative. And now they are showcasing their personal lives and projects, thoughts without hesitation. It's part of them building their own brand. Then TikTok moved into the world like a virus, and yet some celebs have their own TikTok accounts and have brand deals where they promote certain products. I'm sorry, but anyone who has the salary of a major movie star and promotes olive oil as what they use for their beautiful skin and denies getting any work done is not telling the truth. And you may know who I'm speaking of. Anyway, the point is we have access to them now, and they also have access to us. So what happens when famous actors, athletes, or anyone of status has access to their fans and the general public? They get curious. Look, we're all human and we are all wired for connection. But what happens when you get a DM from a blue checkmark account with a really familiar face and a name and they slide into your DMs? Well, you're about to find out. Next time on Celebrity+One, Episode 2, Part 1. Social media and sliding into those DMs. I share my own experience with a celeb and how he found me on Twitter, and also talk to others who have been contacted via social media by celebs. How did they know it was really them? What was the proof? How did it make them feel? And most of all, what did they talk about? Join me next time as we learn more. Celebrity+One was produced by me, DeAnna Cali. Sound production, editing, and music production by Aaron Zier with Diligent Entertainment. Thank you so much for listening, you guys. You can help me get closer to interviewing these celebrities when you share, review, and subscribe to Celebrity+One, wherever you get your podcasts. Do you have an experience with dating a celebrity or someone famous? Have been on Raya the dating app or are currently on Raya and are able to talk about your experience? Go to www.celebrity+one.com and click the contact tab to get in touch. And just to let you know, we always protect the identity of anyone who shares their stories. That's celebrity+one.com. Hope to hear from you soon.